I don't talk about this much, mostly because every time I try to bring it up, people either think I'm joking or they just kinda smile like I'm telling some urban legend I picked up from the internet. But I know what I saw, and I know what happened. This was back in the summer of 2016. I was 27 at the time, working freelance as a wildlife photographer. Not like National Geographical or anything. I did smaller contracts for outdoor magazines, trail equipment companies, that kind of thing. The work didn't pay much, but it got me into places most people don't bother to look at twice on a map. This particular trip had taken me deep into northern Nevada. If you've ever driven out there, you already know it's nothing but desert scrubland and sun-bleached roads that stretch on forever. The kind of place where a gas station becomes a landmark. I'd parked my SUV just off a gravel maintenance road near the Great Basin and hiked out about 10 miles with my gear. I was planning to spend 3 nights camping alone, trying to photograph wild mustangs that were rumored to pass through a dry valley at dusk. The first day and night were totally uneventful, peaceful, even. Just me, the dust, a couple jackrabbits, and the endless sky. Cell signal had dropped off within the first couple hours of leaving the highway, but that wasn't unusual. I had my satellite emergency beacon, plenty of food and water, and I'd given a copy of my route to a friend back in Reno. I wasn't reckless. Second night is when this all started. That afternoon had been quiet. I'd seen distant dust trails, maybe horses, or just the wind dragging up sand. No good photos, just heat and silence. The wind out there's strange sometimes. You hear it before you feel it, like it's moving above the ground instead of through it. Anyway, I was sitting near my tent around sundown, adjusting my tripod, when I saw her dot at first. I thought I was imagining it, a figure, way out on the flat, like way out, maybe half a mile away, walking toward the mountains. I stood up and shielded my eyes from the glare, thinking it might be a mirage. But no, there was definitely someone out there, walking alone, in the middle of the Nevada nowhere. No car, no pack, just walking. What stuck with me right away wasn't just that she was out there, it was how she walked. Straight line, no hesitation, no looking around, like she'd been walking forever. And she was still miles from stopping. I must have stood there for 5 minutes, just watching her. I even tried calling out, but the wind carried my voice the wrong way. She didn't turn, didn't stop, just kept walking, further from the road, deeper into nowhere. I didn't sleep much that night, not because of fear, exactly. More like confusion that curdled into unease. There were no towns within 40 miles in any direction. And this woman, she didn't even have water. I kept telling myself maybe she was some extreme hiker, or maybe she had a base camp out there I didn't know about. But the longer I sat with it, the more I realized something was off, way off. And that was just the beginning. I woke up the next morning with a knot in my stomach. The kind that sits too deep for you to explain. The kind that doesn't come from anything specific, just this weird sense that something's off, and your brain hasn't caught up to why yet. The woman I saw the night before, if I even saw her, hadn't come back into view. I figured maybe she was long gone, or maybe she'd been closer than she looked and I just overestimated the distance. Mirage, shadow, heat stroke, maybe. That desert heat has a way of playing tricks on you if you're not careful. I tried not to dwell on it, as I brewed some instant coffee over my little backpack stove and sorted through my memory cards. But I couldn't shake it. I even checked the zoom shots from the night before, just in case she had ended up in the background. Nothing, just sand, dry brush, and the violet hues of the sunset bleeding over the valley. The flat stretch where I saw her was empty. Still, I kept glancing toward that direction throughout the morning. My gear was all packed and ready for a half-day hike to a ridge a few miles east. I'd scoped it out on satellite maps before heading out. The ridge had a better vantage point, and if there really were wild mustangs in the area, they'd likely follow the dry riverbed that ran through that cut. I left camp around 10 a.m. It was a 2-hour hike with the sun already starting to press down hard. No clouds, no wind, just silence that felt heavy. The kind of silence you notice because it has texture, like it's thickening the air around you. Usually, even in remote places, you'll hear something. Crickets, wind, rustling grass, a distant hawk, but this, just the crunch of my boots and the low, constant throb of blood in my ears. An hour in, I passed a dry tree stump that didn't look familiar, which was odd, since I had scouted this hike virtually, and I'm usually pretty good with landmarks. But it wasn't just that the tree stump didn't look familiar, it looked wrong. The bark was stripped in perfect spirals, as if something had clawed around it over and over again. No insects, no rot. It looked like it had been peeled. I stared at it for a long time, one boot resting on a patch of cracked dirt, waiting for my brain to categorize it as something normal. Animal behavior, maybe. A bear, coyotes, something. But it didn't feel like that. It felt deliberate. I kept moving. Around noon I reached the ridge. I set up my camera, ate a quick protein bar and waited. Still no horses, but that wasn't unusual. Wildlife photography is 95% patience, 5% payoff. I've gone days without a single usable shot, but again that strange heaviness lingered in the air, like I was waiting for something I couldn't name. And then, just past 1 p.m., I saw her again. Same direction as before, straight line, walking across the open flat. No pack, no gear, no hat to block the sun. Just her, dressed in dark jeans and a pale shirt, hair tied back, face impossible to make out from that distance. But her body language, God, it made my skin crawl. She wasn't struggling, she wasn't looking around, trying to get her bearings. She just moved, like someone following a map, only she could see. And she was closer this time. I raised my camera instinctively, zoomed in as far as my lens would allow, but just as I focused on her form, just as I had her centered in my viewfinder, she stopped, dead in her tracks, didn't turn, didn't move. She just stood there, as if she knew I had eyes on her. For a solid 30 seconds, she didn't budge. I could hear my own breathing in my ears, the subtle whine of the lens motor adjusting focus. And then she did something that has never left me. She tilted her head. Not fully, just enough, like someone listening to a noise from far away. Her shoulders never moved. Her arms hung limply by her sides. Just that one slow, sideward tilt of the head, barely noticeable, but so wrong. I lowered the camera, heart pounding, and when I looked up with my naked eyes, she was gone. Just gone. That there was no rock to hide behind, no trees, nothing out there, but flat dirt and sagebrush. My eyes darted everywhere, scanning the terrain. I even considered that she might have dropped flat to the ground. But why? How would she have known I was watching? I stayed there another hour, maybe 2, watching the same patch of desert like it might explain itself to me. It didn't, and the longer I waited, the more it felt like I was being watched. Eventually I packed up and headed back down to my tent. The air felt heavier with each step, like I was walking into a room where something bad had just happened. By the time I reached camp, the sun was low again, long shadows casting sharp cuts across the desert floor. I checked the camera, flipping back through the frames I'd taken. I reached the one where I knew she was supposed to be centered in the viewfinder, plain as day. But when I zoomed in, nothing, just empty brush, no woman, no figure, no distortion. I stared at the image for a long time, my thumb hovering over the delete button. I couldn't bring myself to press it. Instead, I left the camera on, set it in the tent, and stepped outside to eat. I boiled some water and made instant noodles, sitting on a rock with my headlamp off. I didn't want the light to attract attention. It felt stupid I was alone, but it didn't feel like I was. That's when I heard it. Crunch. Just one dry footstep on loose dirt. My spine locked up. It wasn't near, more like 50 or 60 feet out, behind the low rise that curved just beyond my tent. I turned my head slightly, listening. The silence was back, dense, unnatural. Then another crunch, pause, crunch. Not animal footsteps, no rustling, no scurrying, just 2 deliberate steps. I grabbed my flashlight but didn't turn it on. Instead, I crept toward the edge of the rise, staying low, heartbeat hammering in my ears. I stopped just short of the crest and listened. Nothing. Nothing. I stayed there for maybe 5 minutes, frozen, ears straining. Then, behind me closer to the tent, I heard the softest whisper. I swear to God, it sounded like, still watching, I spun around, light flicked on instinctively, cutting a sharp beam across the brush. No one there, just the tent, the empty rock, and my steamless pot of noodles. I slept inside the tent that night with the emergency beacon clutched against my chest and my pocket knife unfolded next to my sleeping bag. Not that either would have helped. I didn't feel safe, not even a little, but I stayed. Because some part of me still didn't want to believe anything was wrong, that this was all just exhaustion, heat, maybe dehydration playing tricks on me. But the next day, things got worse, way worse. The next morning I woke up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. I must have passed out from sheer exhaustion sometime around 3 a.m. But it was that kind of shallow, paranoid sleep where you keep jerking awake at every rustle outside the tent, every crunch of dirt, every shift of fabric. I even remember turning over at one point and thinking I saw a silhouette outside the tent while completely still, but when I blinked again, It was gone. I told myself it was moonlight cutting through the mesh, just tricks of shadow. I told myself a lot of things that morning. The desert was already warming up when I unzipped the tent. Everything looked normal, nothing disturbed. No footprints. No signs that anyone or anything had come close. But that feeling hadn't left me. That sense that I was being monitored. Not in a physical way. Like someone was waiting behind a rock. Or a bush with binoculars. It was deeper than that. Quieter. Like something was aware of me. And it didn't need to be near to watch. I almost packed up right then. But against stubbornness, or maybe stupidity, told me to stick it out. I'd come this far. I had one more night before I planned to hike back to the SUV. And I kept telling myself I couldn't let paranoia ruin a job. I'd never walked out on a trip early. Not once, so I decided to take a different route that day, just to clear my head. There was a small canyon about 2 miles south of my camp, low and narrow, carved through the soft earth like a scar. The topographic maps I'd printed out showed it feeding into a dry wash, and I figured maybe I'd find some better luck down there, or, at the very least, get away from whatever was rattling around in my head. The hike to the canyon was uneventful, though I noticed more odd things as I went. Bones not a ton, just a few here and there, long, thin ones, bleached white and cracked like they'd been out there forever. I've seen animal bones before, nothing unusual about that in the wilderness, but these weren't scattered like you'd expect. They were placed in small, almost intentional piles, as if someone had picked them clean and then arranged them with care, more than once. I stopped and stared at them for a long time, waiting for my instincts to tell me this was normal. They didn't. Still, I made it to the canyon, and climbed down into the cool shade, which was a relief after the exposed heat of the flats. The light filtered down in thin slats, and the walls around me curved inward slightly enough to muffle sound. As I moved forward, the temperature dropped, and I started to notice small carvings on the canyon walls. Tiny ones, scratched into the sandstone. At first, I thought they were petroglyphs, maybe native markings, but the closer I looked, the more I realized they weren't symbols, that they were tallies. Straight lines, maybe 100 in one cluster, then another group a few feet away, then another. I found 6 clusters like that as I walked, all in a row, spaced like something had been keeping count while it moved through here. But counting what? Steps, days, people? That's when I turned a corner in the canyon and stopped dead in my tracks. In the sand ahead of me were footprints, barefoot, small, human. They trailed ahead in a perfect line and then just stopped. No sign of them turning back. No other prints around them. Just 12 prints forward, then nothing. I crouched down to inspect them, suddenly hyper-aware of how quiet it had gotten again. The temperature dropped further. It was almost chilly now. The canyon seemed to hold its breath. And then I heard it. Not footsteps, not whispers. Breathing. Low, shaky, but not mine. It was coming from the rocks above me, just out of sight, somewhere near the rim of the canyon wall. I felt my stomach tighten like a fist. I didn't move, just listened. Another breath, then silence. Then. The sound of dirt falling, just a small trickle of it, like someone had accidentally nudged their foot too close to the edge up top. I looked up, hand shaking, and for a split second I saw fingers thin, pale, gripping the rim of the canyon. Just 2 knuckles curling over the lip. And then they vanished. I didn't even realize I'd started backing away until I stumbled on a loose stone and caught myself with both hands. I stood up, turned around fast, and made my way back the way I came. Fast walk, not quite a run. Every step, I expected to hear movement behind me, but there was nothing. Nothing except that bone-dry silence pressing in again. I reached camp around 3 p.m. drenched in sweat, legs sore, legs tight. I sat on a rock, trying to steady myself, and that's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. My tent was zipped shut, which wouldn't have been strange, except I knew I'd left it open. It was stifling in there during the day, and I always left the flap halfway unzipped to keep the airflow going, but now it was sealed. Neatly. I approached slowly, every step feeling wrong. When I reached for the zipper, I swear I felt static charge in the air, like right before lightning. I unzipped it in one fast motion and yanked the flap open. Empty. At first. But when I stepped inside, I saw something on my sleeping bag. Not something left, something drawn. Tally marks, 12 of them, scratched lightly into the fabric with what looked like a piece of charcoal or black stone. 12, the same number as the footsteps in the canyon. I stood there staring at them, suddenly unable to breathe. My mouth went dry. I touched the marks, with my fingers fresh, smudged slightly under pressure, and on instinct I checked my camera. I don't know why. Maybe I thought it would have caught something. Maybe I needed proof that I wasn't losing it. I flipped through the photos again, and that's when I found it. Not on the image I took the day before, on the very last one, before the camera had powered down from inactivity. It was a shot, a blur, seemed like an accidental exposure, but in the far right corner, barely visible, was her, closer this time, still walking, still in that straight line, still not looking at me, but her head was tilted, that same unnatural tilt, and her arms were longer than they should have been, not cartoonishly long, just off by a few inches, enough to make you squint. I backed out of the tent and sat down hard on the sand. My chest was tight, my thoughts were racing. I looked out toward the direction she always came from, and that's when I saw the loop, a trail in the dust that led away from camp and then curved back. Not my prints, different size, barefoot, like someone had circled my tent in a wide arc twice, and I hadn't heard a thing. I stayed up that entire night, flashlight off, knife in hand, every muscle in my body straining to catch any sound, but there was nothing, not even the wind. But I felt her out there, waiting. I don't think I blinked once that whole night. I sat with my back against a boulder, knees up, knife resting on my thigh, flashlight in my lap, and the satellite beacon clipped to my shoulder strap just in case I needed to hit the SOS, but I didn't press it. Not yet. Part of me still didn't want to make it real. The desert was pitch black by midnight. No moon. The kind of dark that swallows you whole. I had shut off every light source hours ago to stay hidden. Even the tiny green glow of my camera battery, I covered it with duct tape. I didn't want her to see me. And yeah, I was past pretending she wasn't real. I'd seen her, she'd been inside my tent. I don't know how, I don't even want to think about when, but she'd been there. The worst part was, nothing happened for hours. I sat, I waited. Every so often I thought I heard something, the crackle of dry grass, a distant thump. But the wind plays tricks like that. I kept looking toward the direction she always came from, but the horizon never changed. And then, around 3:40 a.m., did hear something, not loud, not dramatic, just wrong. That was the rhythm. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The footsteps weren't steady. They came in pairs, like someone stepping, pausing to listen, then stepping again. Slow, intentional. Getting closer, I pressed my back harder against the boulder, not daring to move. My breath was shallow and fast, like I was trying to hold it in shifts. The sound came from behind my tent this time, not where she usually appeared. She had changed her route, she was adapting. The steps moved in a curve, like she was circling again. Not fast, no panic, just that slow, sick rhythm, crunch, crunch, silence, then a whisper, but not a word. Not this time, it was humming low, tuneless, like someone humming a lullaby they didn't quite remember. I couldn't tell how far she was. It echoed, just strangely bouncing off rock, hitting me from weird angles. It felt like it was everywhere. Clenched the knife tighter. Then I made a mistake. I turned on the flashlight. Not a full beam, just a flicker. Just enough to catch the edge of my but the second I clicked it on, the humming stopped. The silence hit like a fist. Immediate, violent, thick enough to hear my own pulse screaming in my ears. I swung the light toward the back of the tent. Nothing, swung it left. Still nothing. Then, right before I could turn it forward, again she stepped into the light. Not from behind a rock, not from the darkness. She was just there, in the open, about 20 feet in front of me. Her head still tilted, hands at her sides. No expression, no emotion, just staring. Except her eyes didn't match her face. They looked wrong, like they were focused on something. Far behind me, even though her body was facing me head on, I couldn't move. I didn't even feel scared at first, just frozen, like my brain hadn't caught up to the moment. And then she took a step, one slow, dragging movement forward, like her legs didn't work right. The sand didn't make a sound under her feet. This time, she took another step. I whispered quiet, breathless, stop. She did single quotes, another step. I held out the knife and tried to sound firm, but my voice cracked like a dry twig. I'll hurt you. She smiled. It was so slight, barely more than a shift in her mouth, but it wasn't human. It looked like someone trying to smile. Someone who'd seen it done before, but didn't know what it meant. Then she stopped moving. About 10 feet away now. Close enough that I could see her clothes didn't fit right. Like they weren't hers. Jeans too long in the leg, sleeves rolled up on a shirt that looked like it came from someone else's suitcase. The hem was torn. There were faded stains on the fabric. Reddish-brown. My flashlight flickered just once, and when it steadied she was closer. No sound, no motion, just a jump in distance. I screamed and backed up fast, scrambling over the gravel until my elbow slammed into the boulder behind. Me, she started humming again, but her lips never moved. The sound just came, like a recording echoing from inside her chest. That was it. I dropped the flashlight and ran. I don't remember getting my legs under me. I don't remember grabbing the emergency beacon off my shoulder. All I remember is running in the dark with a knife in one hand, the beacon in the other, smashing the SOS button with my thumb so hard it cracked the plastic cover, and I kept running. Branches slapped my arms. Rocks sliced into my boots. The desert isn't meant to be run through in the dark, but I didn't care. I ran until my lungs burned and my throat felt like it was bleeding. The beacon was flashing red in my hand, a tiny pulse of hope. But then, I heard it again, behind me. The footsteps. Not running, walking. Still that same, awful rhythm. Like she knew no matter how far I went, I'd never be far enough. Crunch, crunch, pause. And then the humming. Closer now. I veered right. Toward a dry ravine I remembered seeing on the map. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I hoped it would give me cover. Maybe I just needed something between me and her. I reached the edge and slid down the slope, scraping my palms raw on the way down, and I fell hard. Twisted something in my ankle. Not broken, but bad enough that I couldn't run anymore. I crawled behind a boulder, panting, trying to quiet my breathing. The beacon was still flashing. I pressed it again, like more presses would make someone come faster, and then silence again. Total. I stayed there for who knows how long. No footsteps. No humming. Just the sound of blood in my ears and the faint click of the beacon cycling its distress pulse. Eventually, as the first hint of daylight lit the sky in a dull gray haze, I passed out. I woke up to the sound of rotors. Search and rescue chopper. They found me curled behind that rock, clutching the beacon, lips cracked, sunburn starting to set in. I'd lost my gear, my tent, even my camera. The team said they didn't find anything back at the site, no signs of another person, no footprints but mine. But they looked at me like they knew something had gone wrong, like they'd heard stories before. They didn't ask too many questions, just flew me out. When I got back home, I tried to find anything about what I'd seen. Missing people, local legends, paranormal stuff, old trail rumors. I went down internet rabbit holes that led nowhere, except once. On a forgotten message board for wilderness solo hikers, someone posted a thread back in 2009. Only one reply. It said, if you see her walking, don't follow. If she stops, don't look away. If she smiles, you're already too late. That's all it said. The original poster never came back, and I haven't gone camping since. People think the worst part of experiencing something terrifying is the moment it happens. The confrontation, the adrenaline, the fight or flight response. But that's not true. The worst part is afterward, when you're home, when you're safe, and no one believes you. It's the silence you return to. The silence in your own apartment, where you keep waiting for the footsteps to start again. It's been almost 9 years now. I never went back out to that desert. I left all my freelance contracts, sold my gear, and took an office job doing product photography for a sporting goods chain. Fluorescent lights, cubicles, noise. People. I thought it would help. It didn't. For the first 6 months, I couldn't sleep without every light on in the apartment. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. every single night, always at 2 o'clock. Sometimes I'd swear I heard humming. Always faint, always just far enough away that I couldn't be sure if it was real or just my brain looping the memory. Asterisk. I told a friend once, just one. We were drunk. He laughed it off at first, but when he saw I wasn't joking, he got quiet, really quiet. Then he leaned in and asked, do you think maybe you fell, hit your head, got heat stroke or something? I wanted to agree. God, I wanted to. It would have been easier to believe it was all some warped hallucination. But I remembered every second of it, too clearly, and I remembered what I saw on that final photo. The long arms, the bent neck, the way she stared at me without actually looking at me. I didn't tell anyone else after that. For a long time I tried to move on, get normal again. I dated someone for a little while, a girl named Emily. Sweet, smart, outdoorsy. She wanted to go hiking once, maybe even do a couple's backpacking trip to Glacier National Park. I said no. She asked why. I didn't answer. She thought it was just nerves or laziness. That we broke up a few months later, not because of that, but it was part of it, I think. People feel when something's off inside you, even if they don't know why. I thought about therapy, but every time I got close to booking a session, I'd remember what I'd have to say. I saw a woman walking through the desert who didn't blink, didn't talk, didn't belong, and who may have followed me without sound for miles. She got closer every night. She was wearing someone else's clothes, and I think she wanted me to see her. How do you even begin to unpack that? So I did and single quotes T. Instead. I just ... kept going. Day by day, working, sleeping, eating, pretending it was behind me. Until last summer I was on my way home from work, just before midnight. Took a shortcut down a quiet back road near my apartment complex. I'd walked it 100 times before. Familiar. Safe. But that night, I saw someone across the street. Just for a second. Not close, not in detail, but the posture was the same. Shoulders slack, head tilted slightly, and that walk, that slow, dragging rhythm. One step, then another. Pause. I stop. Walking, my mouth went dry. And then she passed under the glow of a street lamp and disappeared behind a parked van. Gone. I waited for her to come out the other side. I waited nearly 2 minutes. Nothing when I finally worked up the nerve to approach. The van, she wasn't there. No one was. The sidewalk was empty, dead quiet, but I know what I saw. I know it was her. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't sleep for a few nights after that either. And ever since then, things have started again. It's subtle, but it's there. I'll catch glimpses of movement. In reflections always just behind me. I'll hear a second set of footsteps echoing mine on stairwells. I'll come home and find the closet door slightly more open than I left it. Not wide. Just enough to notice. And twice now, just twice I've woken up to find black marks on my bedroom wall. Tally marks, 12 of them. Just like before. I painted over them. Scrubbed them clean. Told myself maybe I did it in my sleep. But that doesn't explain the dirt smudges below them. Like someone stood there for a while just watching. And yesterday, something new happened. I got a package in the mail. No return address, no postage. Just a plain brown box sitting at my doorstep. Inside, my old field camera. The one I lost in the desert. Still dusty, still scratched. And on the memory card just one file, not a photo. A video. It starts with static, then shifts to grainy low-light footage, like something was recording from behind fabric. A tent, maybe. The timestamp is from the second night, in the desert, and it plays for exactly 38 seconds. At the very end, the tent zipper starts to lower, and just as the flap parts you see her face. For the first time, I only watched it once. I couldn't bear to look again. Her skin is stretched tight, wrong, like someone wearing a human face too thin for their skull. Her eyes are wide, unfocused, but her mouth. Her mouth is smiling, not wide, not sinister, just slightly, like a whisper of a smile, and just before the video ends, her head tilts to one side, and she says something. One word, almost too faint to catch, but I heard it. She says, soon. I smashed the camera, threw it into the dumpster behind my building, but now, every time I walk home at night, I listen for footsteps, and sometimes I hear them just behind me. Crunch. Crunch. Pause. And once just last week I swear I heard humming again. So I don't go on hikes anymore. I don't travel. I don't take photos. I keep the doors locked. I don't sleep through the night. I keep my phone fully charged and a light on in every room. But deep down, I know it won't matter, because wherever she came from, whatever she is, she doesn't need the desserts. She found me once, and now she knows the way back.